What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Dead Draw Gaming Podcast. As always, I am your host, Etchy, and joining me are Hunter Butler, Nick Moffitt, and Andy Gantner. First up, we have the man with no social media, Hunter Butler, fresh off of a stream match at Baltimore. Hunter, how are you doing?
Getting dogged.
Those are a great game. We'll get into it a little bit later, but how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm newly engaged, so feeling good about
Oh,
that.
congrats.
Yep.
Congrats.
Thank
Sure, that happened at
Appreciate it.
Worlds, right?
Yep. Happened at Worlds.
Awesome.
So yeah, just honing it in. I'm 23rd place in the country right now, so I'm feeling like we might be able to push for a stipend for the first one if I can land a Latin America tournament entry. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, good luck with
Yep.
that.
Yeah,
There's no
appreciate
buy
it.
this round for Worlds, right? It's just the quarterly stipends.
No, I'm just gonna go for the first one. I don't think I'm gonna. I mean,
Gotcha.
maybe if
Makes
I
sense.
have a hot streak, maybe I'll go for the end one. But I'll strike while the iron's hot and get the first one. Then the rest of the stinky lads can have the rest of them. You know.
Next up, we have Nick Moffitt. Nick, how are you feeling? Are you feeling ready for Louisville coming up?
Definitely got a lot more prep to do for sure. Got to zero in on a deck, I suppose.
True.
Just been experimenting with some different things right now, but yeah, doing all right. Format's fun so far, at least.
Yeah, I think a lot of general prep stuff will probably hone in a lot more after this upcoming weekend because we'll have two regionals,
Yeah,
more
definitely.
data to go off of, more example decks.
Yeah,
Will definitely help a
that'll
lot.
give a better picture of the matter for sure after
For
this
sure.
weekend.
Yeah, because nobody here is going to any of those regionals, right? I mean, obviously, you'd probably be traveled
No,
already
I wish I
if you
was.
were.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're all going to be at Louisville, though. So, lastly, we have NAIC top eighter Andy Gantner. Andy, how are things going?
Things are great right now. I'm feeling good for Louisville. I'm got a lot more time on my hands. Didn't practice that much for Baltimore, but I'm grinding out games every night.
It's awesome.
Playing a bunch of Pokemon for Louisville.
Playing Pokemon. Can't imagine
Playing
that.
Pokemon.
Very foreign concept to all of us here. But
I'm
yeah,
sure.
so lots to go over for today's podcast. We had Baltimore Regionals just happened. Not like just happened, but did happen since our last episode. We also have Dortmund and Joinville Regionals happening this weekend, so a lot to go into for both Stellar Crown format and a little bit of reflection on Shrouded Fable. So I wanted to kind of talk about just our thoughts on that too and just how we feel about it now that it's over. So I think Hunter is probably the best place to start because you did make it to your winning into day 2 at Baltimore, and it was the stream match. Obviously, it didn't go great, but can you talk about the deck you played and how the tourney went for you?
Yeah, so the deck I played was actually started by being created by a Japanese player who hit like somewhere around the 2200 mark on live, just literally smashing games. And the person who actually taught me how to play Pokemon has come back to start playing. His name's Aaron Curry. And he kind of ran into the deck online and decided that it was really, really interesting and wanted to kind of work on it further. And then he kind of with me and Grafton, the person who got ninth, who made it to asymmetrical cut but lost his asymmetrical winning in or whatever, we kind of just all conglomerated on working on the list. And then, yeah, decided that I felt like it was one of the best decks in the format. So, yeah, it's Palkia with Dusknoir and then the Greninja, which a lot of people didn't really understand why the Greninja was even in there. And it's like a super major part of the deck. Because this deck doesn't have a real good time when you don't win the coin flip, when you don't go first. So Greninja is actually like when you're forced to go second, that's like your first attacker almost in most matchups like Bolt and Roaring Moon and these type of matchups where they can kind of just take away your Palkia pretty easily. So you need something that's beefy and can take multiple prizes. And it also smashes Iron Thorns and Miraidon. So felt like I had a good deck. Didn't play too many good matchups, although I did make it to 6-2 and then finally hit like an amazing matchup. Gardevoir is like a 95-5. It's really hard to lose. And I just did not draw very well. My opponent also gave me 2 different chances to win the game. Like game 1, he could have won with the Arven. I was actually like, I was like getting ready to pick up my cards when he played Arven. And then he just didn't grab Super Auto Rescue Stretcher and just gave me the chance that if I find Vacuum, I win the game. Of course, I don't find Vacuum after looking at like 6 or 7 cards with Draw for Turn, Pokestop Fez, all that type of stuff. I don't exactly remember how the turn went. And then game 2, I just opened Bear and Pokestopped 89% of my deck until I was down to like 4 or 5 cards where both of my switching outs were. So just a combination of bad events. But I think Grafton really showcased how strong the deck was, considering only 3 of us played it. One was on winning in, and then one basically almost made it a top 8. So yeah, I think the deck's really strong. And if you have cups in this format, I think it's a really good deck to bring to cups.
You played against Grafton Roll on stream?
No. Grafton was the one who played the same list that we all played.
Oh, okay.
I played against some kid who was his first regional, and yeah, it showed for sure. No hate on the guy, but he had game and then just didn't even see it and gave me a chance to win. But I still wouldn't have changed my deck choice. I was really happy with it, and feel like it has really good matchups with the popular decks.
Cool. Yeah, we'll talk more about kind of Dusknoir decks in general and if they have a place in Stellar Crown when we talk about Stellar Crown. But just really quickly, I just want to get people's thoughts on Shrouded Fable in hindsight. Do you all still think it's as bad as everyone says it is? No? Is it because you have the fun Dusknoir deck?
I think there was like, when you look at day 2 of this tournament, there were so many oddball decks like RCS Armaroos, RCS Dusknoir, the Quad Ogerpon deck. I think this format is like kind of far from solved. I wish we would have had maybe another.
Yeah, if it went on longer, it would definitely be more interesting potentially.
Yeah.
People complaining that it wasn't a good format is just like, there were so many decks. Like you could have played literally anything and done fine.
Yeah, honestly, like I agree because I mean nobody thought Guardy had a shot at this tournament, and it taking it down kind of just like proves that like you really could have just taken anything to this event, and like I mean you still have a shot, right? There's like no deck that is just terrible, so I think it was fine.
I think the speed of the game is what people are most complaining about is like, oh, games are over in like 3 turns. Well, Stellar Crown's 2 to 3 turns too. So I wouldn't. That's what you're upset about. You're not. That's not going away. That's going to be coming up for you for the next format. So
yeah,
I don't know.
You can win in 2 attacks. That's great.
Well.
This format, the Stellar Crown, kind of reminds me of like. Not that I don't think anyone likes 2012 format, but it kind of reminds me of 2012 a little bit, where it's like 7 different big basic decks and then like random stage 2 like tempo lock decks, like where they're just like sprinkled in, you know. So it kind of feels like that.
Games were still a lot longer though.
Yeah,
no one was winning in 3 turns back then.
Tornadus Shaman was kind of almost like a donk deck a little bit. So was Darkrai. Darkrai was a little bit of a donk deck too.
You were hitting 90 on their 180. Like it's not.
Well,
their EX with your EX. It was a little different.
Yeah. I still think it was fast and big basics.
Yeah, but not big basics blowing each other up every turn.
Yeah,
no, not blowing you up every turn.
Sure,
definitely
not Raging Bolt 280 turn.
No, exactly.
Not Raging Bolt and Roaring Moon for sure.
You're like, man, Night Spirit turn 1 hit for 90. This is great.
Yeah.
But like, okay. Maybe Darkrai's not the best example, but Shaman, Tornadus, or whatever.
All right.
Yeah, I guess just going into general Stellar Crown thoughts then. Are you all generally liking it more now that you've been testing it and getting ready for these upcoming regionals than Shrouded Fable? How are you, just general thoughts on the format, how you're feeling about it, etc.?
Go ahead, Andy.
Well, I like.
Are you actually
I like
raising your
Lost Box. No, my arms on the wall. I'm just resting my head. I like Lost Box. I think I've done pretty well with Lost Box. So having Lost Box back is a blessing.
And so, what is the reason you're saying it's back? Is it just less Regidrago in theory in the format?
Oh yeah, way less. I think there's going to be way less Regidrago at Louisville than there was at Baltimore, obviously, because wasn't it like the number 1 deck? Or yeah, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, it was, but not by that much.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't think Lost Box even had a shot at this at Baltimore, but the big deck's taken up a lot of the Regidrago's chance at taking down Louisville. I think gives Lost Box a shot at this format, which is fantastic for me because I love that deck. It's my favorite deck.
That's good news because I would love to play less than Lost Box, but so far the format feels a lot of the same. And then there's like a few new decks like the Terapagos, and then decks gain new tools, mainly just Briar, which I felt hasn't come up as much as I was expecting it to. So in Raging Bolt, for example, the main thing you would want to use it is to kill their Radiant Zard when you're at 2 and they're at 2. But Radiant Zard has 160 HP, so you have to already have 2 energy on your Ogre Pawn. So I don't think the deck's that great of a user of it. And then into the Zard matchup, which is where everyone says, "Oh, it's so great." They can kind of play around it a lot, like retreat their Zard EX to get the energy off, um, and then not have that as a target for the Briar. But yeah, the format feels a lot of the same so far, and the Terapagos Dusknoir deck is cool. That's what I've been playing the most with, and I think Regidrago is still, if not the best deck, probably still top 3 for sure. So I think people are sleeping on that a lot right now, disrespecting it. Like I've seen so many decks cutting Manaphy, and I think that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think the format is like super different, but I do think just both of these formats, the Shrouded Fable and adding the Stellar Crown, like a lot of people have been complaining like there's not enough innovation or there's not room. I feel like there's just so many decks that came out of the Shrouded Fable format just after Worlds, where like Worlds felt like everybody was too confused about the format, about engines and how much control and Iron Thorns were going to be a thing, like block blacks and stuff like that. So like decks weren't really optimized. And I feel like we didn't get enough time to like fully finish that format. So I think this tournament is going to kind of be like Worlds, where most people are going to be sticking to decks that were working out in the Shrouded Fable format with new cards. But I do think there's a lot more room for innovation, which I'm happy about. I'm finding different spots to try different decks. And I think the stadium card, which a lot of people are hating on, just makes so many cool, fun ideas. Maybe they're not all competitive, but you can mess around with stuff like the stadium and the Terra Pokemon and stuff like that, mixing them up. And I think Noctowl is a really good engine. I think it's really good for the game. And there's a lot of ways to use Noctowl other than just spamming Noctowl to make a Pidgeot EX and then have a Pidgeot EX in play. I think there's a lot cooler stuff you could be doing with Noctowl. So I like the format. I'm enjoying exploring it. I'm not done with any of the rogue decks I'm working on, but a lot of time to get into this one. So I'm glad that got another early start.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely seems general sentiment seems a little bit higher on this format than last, and despite not maybe too much changing, but still a lot of room for things to develop and grow. So looking at what's kind of just recently happened then, moving past Shrouded Fable completely, is the recent Champions League Tokyo was literally just this past weekend. Raging Bolt won that. Lugia got second. I think the only new card between both of them was Briar, which is not super exciting. But again, Japan format very different, all best of one. And Raging Bull in general has just been super popular there and has done really well in general across all their city leagues. So I think Raging Bolt's probably the best place to start. It does kind of feel like an S tier deck in Japan, just looking at their results. Yeah, when I talk to people here, everyone's like, it's kind of mid. It's okay. It's like the same thing. I know it's a deck that a lot of good players were strongly considering for Worlds, almost entirely because it was just considered to be the most consistent deck, and people were like scared and unsure of what to play. And now it's still looking like it's going to be just good in general because of the addition of Briar. So I know Nick, you tested Raging Bolt a lot in the past. Do you think this hype is real or justified in any way? Is it just still okay?
I think it's still a very good deck. I don't see why it's particularly better than it was last format, though. It's like I mentioned a few minutes ago about Briar. It's not really the best deck to utilize it by any means. Like even something like a Regidrago would be better equipped to use it with the energy switches so that you can actually hit those numbers you need to hit with the Ogre Pawn attack. But I think one of the reasons is good is things like Dragapult coming into play with their new tool card. That was something that was kind of absent in the previous format. And then you're also good into a lot of these new Terapagos decks where like you kind of just do the same thing, but you can attack turn 1 and they can't. So you have a lot of good matchups there. And then I think it does definitely benefit from the best of one format over in Japan. So we'll see how things pan out here in the West.
But
I think
is it? Are you just saying that because it is such a consistent deck, so it's just naturally good for best of one, or what?
yeah. So when you can play 3 games, you can play things that might not set up all the time, but when they do, they have a better matchup spread. Whereas in best of one, it's usually better to have something that you kind of get to play every game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Raging Bolt definitely has been like the best safe cup deck, as a best of one format. It just feels like, again, you're setting up, you hit the damage, you can attack going second, you don't mind going first, you have multiple single prizers, like to shove around, get around bundle, with the Sandy Shock or Ninja, your own bundle stuff. Some of them play Fluttermane. So, you have strategies against the other turbo decks where you can kind of present 2-1 prizers. I think the biggest thing, about like gaining momentum and being better now or becoming a better deck is like the different ways you can play it now are a little bit varying. Whether you play the knockdown stuff in the Area Zero, or you play straight Pokestop, or you play a mix of Area Zero and Pokestop to be able to like bounce off your liabilities. There's a lot of cool stuff that the deck can do, and I think there was one particular Raging Bolt guy in the Champions League who had like Energy Switch, Clear Trumpet, all these cool cards that he could combo off with his knockdown.
Sure.
So I think giving it options is good, but also just you already beat Regidrago. Regidrago is considered one of the best decks, and you're close to even to unfavored against Charizard. I think with Briar, it makes it a lot harder to win with the Charizard having Briar. So yeah, I think I think it's definitely considered, in my opinion. I think in this format, it's top three. I don't know if I'd put it first. I think I'd probably put Charizard first, but Raging Bolt definitely is in the top three for the best decks right now. Not only due to consistency, but just because now the lists are a little more open and can have some surprise factor, like the Briar or the Knockdown and stuff like that. So I think it just has a little more nuance, which before it had like no nuance. You know exactly what you were getting when you played against a Raging Bolt. Now you have a little more nuance of supporters you can play and Pokemon you can play and combo cards like that.
I was going to say the Zard versus Raging Bolt matchup does get a lot more intricate with both sides having access to Briar.
Yeah.
So from the Zard perspective, you have to like retreat off your energy off of your Zardiac sometimes. If they go like take one, then kill Pidgeot and try to kill the Zardiacs as the last three prizes. So you'll have to like prep your hand so that you can retreat into Radzard and still use it that turn. And then from the Bolt side, if you take the first prize, you kind of don't want to bench Greninja because then they could go, okay, Dusknoir, Briar, take four prizes on the same turn.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just makes the matchup a lot more intricate than it was before, where before it was like, okay, can the Raging Bolt player take the first two prizes before Zard gets going? If not, they lose.
And I think there's actually a lot to say about like how fast Raging Bolt is as compared to like a lot of the decks this format, because of how U.S. tournaments are structured and like European tournaments are structured. Having a fast deck like Raging Bolt or any of the really other turbo decks really just like rises at least my choices for events, because having a tie just really doesn't matter at all. So I mean, it definitely elevates like what Hunter was saying. It's definitely in the top three decks for me because
So
of
why
just
do
how
we
quick
think
it
then
is.
that it flopped so hard at Baltimore? Was it matchups or just not enough good players playing it?
I don't think very many good players played it. I mean, you look at day two at almost every tournament, and there's just good players. So if not very many good players are bringing it to events, then it's not going to do well. So
I do think the quality of player and the percentage of how much Raging Bolt was at the tournament was definitely a determining factor. Because I know that my first round opponent was against Fabrizio, who played a Bolt, and he was one of the Bolts that did well and made day two, and he's a really strong player. And he was actually managing to get ties with the deck, which I can imagine he was wanting the ties to happen if they were happening. So I would, I think if somebody very highly skilled and competent picks up the deck, I think it can have a big finish. And yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I do think more good players will be looking at it quite a bit more heavily going into these upcoming tournaments. So we'll see how it does at the regionals this weekend, I guess. So I think going into the more fun news stuff then is the Terapagos there's like multiple different Terapagos decks that people are doing, like Palkia or just like Terapagos with the Bouffalon and just kind of walling general like colorless kind of build. I know multiple people here have been testing it and trying it out a lot. Nick,
Everybody's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle right now, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick, do you want to start talking with it?
Yeah, I think the best build, at least from my experience so far with it, is the Pidgeot with Dusknoir. I saw like Isaiah posted the straight Dusknoir, like 4-3 line of that. I tried that one. It didn't, I felt like I was running out of gas a lot of the time. Then tried the one with the Pidgeot. It felt 10 times better. So that's what I've been rocking with since. And then no Bouffalon or anything. You just don't have room for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bouffalon's a troll. It's definitely not good. It's not good if you're a Lost Box player. If they have it, you're not having a good time.
Not good, it's just you don't have room for that. Like when you can play better cards, right?
Yeah. I've tried Pidgeot. I've tried Palkia. I was messing around with like a combo build with a bunch of stuff, but I've kind of settled the list that I've been working on most recently. That feels like the most consistent to me. Doesn't play any Pidgeot. I'm just playing a 4-1-2 Dusknoir and 4-4 Noctowl, and just kind of using as many Noctowls as I can on turn 2, and then benching Hoots and stretching throughout the game to get more use out of the Noctowl, and using Lumineon, Rotom, and Forest Sealstone. So I've just kind of been using like a more low to the ground build, and just using that to combo off. Deck feels real strong with Noctowl and even if you do play Pidgeot, I'm not certain which one is better yet. This is just the one I've been playing more of. Either build, you just can pull off these kind of crazy plays, and then you also get all this deck space to where you can have a variety of one-up supporters like Penny and Briar and all this kind of stuff. So I like that you can kind of have some pretty cool game plans with the deck, and I think it has a lot more nuance than just a bench 8 Pokemon attack. I think it definitely can play defensive. It can play offensive. It can be a board wipe deck. So I think the deck's really interesting. It's definitely something that I'm considering for the tournament. And I've played during Skyfield format, so I'm a big Mega Ray and enjoyer and Raichu Bats enjoyer. So if I can play the 8 Stadium for Louisville, I will definitely do that if I can.
Mega Ray hit 240, didn't it? That's funny that we're hitting less than that now.
Because we had BCE, so
Exactly,
you didn't get the minus or whatever. But also you got to evolve on turn.
You did have to Mega Evolve, yeah.
So,
you had to evolve, but you could do it turn one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Big on the turtle. Another thing I'll throw out there that I'm sure not a lot of people are using this supporter, but I've been getting a lot of use out of it, is I've been playing Mortys in my turtle deck, and a lot of benches are really big right now, and a combo deck like turtle where you want to draw like a bunch of candies or a bunch of stretcher or ball cards or Pokemon or whatever, and Mortys has felt super cool. So I feel like more people should give, not just in turtle, but just in a lot of decks, Morty's a shot right now because benches are just so big and you can draw.
Draw 8 sounds pretty good. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, seems like
done a lot of draw 6 and draw 7. It's felt pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good to me. It's only discard 1, right, for Mortys?
Yeah, so you go like Fez for 3, draw 3, then Morty's away one of the dead Fez cards, then you're drawing 6 or 7, and then you just you haven't even knocked out yet. You have like a 10-minute turn at one point in the game. It's pretty ridiculous. So yeah, it's pretty. I like the deck a lot. I think it's strong.
Yeah. So if it sounds so cool and it seems really good, why is it not doing so hot in Japan, or why is nobody really like playing it in Japan?
Well, I think the coin flip is the biggest thing that's probably stopping people from playing it in best of one. Is feels like you really got to go first, and if you're going second, you don't want to open like a 2-prizer because then your opponent got to go first and they're going to take out a 2-prizer. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely tricky as far as the coin flip. It also, depending on what you play in your list, has a difficult time versus Charizard. I think Bolt's just chalked up to, can you go a full 1-prize board and then take the first 2-prize knockout? Right. But Charizard isn't like that. So you kind of have to be having text in your deck. So right now I'm actually playing Devo in mine. So I can go pop a bunch of Dusknoirs and then Devo the Pidgeot and the Charizard and kind of just hope that with Iono and Devo, their board just kind of falls apart. Makes sense. And I know some people too if you have the Bouffalance and the Bravery Charm, that's also an option against Charizard. They really don't want to be dealing with Bouffalance like at all. So, not that it's great against all the other matchups, but it is good versus Charizard, the Bouffalance specifically. So, I think you just need to, if you want to try to beat Charizard, you need to cater your deck to do it.
Unless you go first and just kill both their Charmanders.
Yep.
Just do that, yeah.
That works too.
No problem.
That works too.
I think the Palkia one too has a better Charizard matchup than straight Hurdle does because you get the Greninja stuff going off too. So
especially because like they're cutting sometimes Manaphy.
Yeah, not a lot of Manaphy going on.
240. You're still not going to be one-shotting them with Palkia, though, right? You could kill Pidgeot, maybe.
No, I mean, depends on how big they play into their bench.
They have to be overbenching, right? Because
if they're
you're
playing
doing
properly,
240 base
probably
plus
not.
whatever they have. Yeah, it's 240 plus whatever they have, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So they shouldn't be letting you kill a Zard. That's for
No,
sure.
of course. That's what I'm saying. If they're playing properly,
you can definitely kill Pidgeot. Though.
Yeah.
So
right. You can kill Pidgeot on having
only two. Yeah. Only two. Yeah.
2 bench,
So that's easy.
Yeah, that's not happening. So there's no Charizard player who's living a game with 2 bench. So we know that's unrealistic.
With 1, they only need 2 for you to kill it. So
yeah,
cool. So that's the new fun deck. We're gonna go back to the old classic of Lost Box. Andy, you just hyped it up a little bit ago. You played at NAIC to a top 8 finish. If Regidrago is going down in play, is Lost Box indeed back?
I think Lost Box is back. I've been playing a lot of it on ladder. I like the way it draws. I like having 4 Pokestop in my deck. I like getting down to Ursaluna plays. I just love the deck. I think it has a solid matchup spread other than Regidrago. I think it can beat Zard if you target their Pidgeys and Pidgeots early. It's pretty tricky, the Zard matchup, to get around a late game Briar if you let them like get super set up and hit that. But hopefully you don't let them do that. And then I think all the other matchups are pretty solid. I would say pretty favored for most of them. I might be blanking on one or two that might be unfavored, but
you're mostly talking about like a Greninja build, right?
Yeah, lost. Pretty. So imagine like what me and Andrew Hedrick played to NAIC, that Adamoon, or like the
Moon so it's like older list basically, just with more turbo-y stuff. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, pretty much that. That's what I'm on right now. And it's actually working pretty well. It's very consistent in my experience. I was watching Andrew play it on ladder earlier, and he was bricking like crazy. So maybe not for him, but for me, it's been working great.
You're still using hands?
I still run hands in my list. But I have noticed that you probably don't. No, I don't run Thorns this format. So yeah, maybe your Lugia matchup isn't that solid, but it's definitely playable. It's better than the Regidrago matchup.
So the only lightning attacker you have is Iron Hands.
Yeah, I just play 1 lightning in my deck.
Oh man. Okay. Oh yeah, because you're playing Moon. Okay.
Yeah, I play Space type. Yep. Yeah.
So it's a pretty tight list, but I like it right now. But I mean, I haven't seen hands do that much, so you might get the boot later.
Yeah, I don't love hands in Lost Box, or like never did, just because it costs 4.
It's
that's because Nick loved Raihan. He'll never put it down. 2 years away, he still can't put it down. Okay, yeah. Nick, the one Mirage Gate hands can't happen anymore unless you bench and attach. Just can't happen.
It's broken.
Without it, I think you have if Henry's Gardevoir catches traction, which I think Gardevoir is a little bit of a sleeper pick for Louisville, if you ask me.
Even though
you're going to want it, you're gonna want to have the hands. Yeah, the Lost Box deck I've been playing, I don't have Moon. I've basically just been playing the same list I was going to play for Worlds, except I took a card out for Water Ogre Pond so that I could have access to 8 bench and also double snipe 2 Knockdowls. So, because Greninja's a little bit weak on the Knockdown stuff. But yeah, I've basically just been playing the same list I was playing to Worlds with the Tatsugiri and that type of stuff, and I'm really enjoying it as well. It's a really strong deck, I think.
Do you run Manaphy in your? Oh, sorry.
No, I don't run Manaphy.
No,
I play against Drago. The best way to beat Drago is to just put 2 Comfies in play anyways and hope that your first 2 prizes with Raikou or a bear or whatever, just get 2 prizes and only bench 2 prizes from then on, one at a time. And if that's the best way to beat them anyways. If you had Manaphy, you're just getting Cologne. It doesn't matter. It's just not worth the spot.
I agree.
Yeah, the list, I've won 3 League Cups in this format with Lost Box, and I was just using Miraidon as my Regidrago V killer. So I'd try to take my first 2 with either Raikou or Miraidon, and then Bear twice with Bundle and Prime Catcher or Boss, any combination. But yeah, you beat Raging Bolt.
You're just like Miraidon, but in the Lost Box section.
Yeah.
Instead of generators.
Search out your Raikou, then you can, then you have your Forest Seal Stone in hand already. You can search it out. But yeah, you just beat all the turbo decks. There's so many turbo decks. Terapagos, Raging Bolt, Roaring Moon, Miraidon with the Sky Field. All these decks get absolutely folded up by just a bear, just spamming bear the whole game. Charizard, always been a good matchup. There hasn't been a Jirachi in like 10 years. It feels like Charizard. Jirachi has been sitting in the bin playing by himself for a while, dude. Andy left him at home. And
Hunter, with the stadium, can't Miraidon now respond to a bear better with Raikou?
A little bit better for sure.
So, say they take the first 2 with hands, aren't they still winning the prize trade then? Right?
Possibly.
Wait, they do.
If you go bear, then they just kill it with Raikou, and then whatever you do.
They have to get through 3 of them, though. They have to get through 3 of them.
2. Well, hand something and then 2.
Right, but they got to get to the hands first, which is Miraidon's first problem, is getting 4 energy on Iron Hands.
And I feel like if they already are knocking out one, you can probably figure out how to play around that, right? I don't know.
I think Miraidon's a deck that's pretty underplayed right now. I think it might just it can do the same thing Bolt does, but also has Iron Hands.
I agree that Miraidon is being undervalued and that it's a strong deck. There was a bunch of them in the top 64 and up of the Japanese league. A lot of Miraidon.
Right, just not in top 16.
Nope, just not in top 16.
Where do we see the results for top 32 and top 64?
From my buddy.
Because those are still good placements,
just word of mouth. Yeah, just word of mouth.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's no.
Yeah, it's crazy that we only get top 16 when it's a 5,000 player tournament.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of interesting decks in top. There was a lot of Palkia Dusknoir, a lot of Palkia, a lot of the Miraidon. There was a Miraidon Mirror on stream too. They were both in contention to make the 16-30, whatever their asymmetrical cut ended out at.
I think it's just straight top 16
or their top 16 cut or whatever. There was plenty of them that were close.
Sure.
Yeah, Miraidon, definitely a good deck, and most people aren't probably giving it the respect it deserves with a decent Lugia matchup.
Yeah. I remember way back I saw a list that was playing the Terra Crystal, 4 DTE, and Wellspring Ogerpon and Miraidon. And they were like, all right, I'm either going to amp you or I'm going to torrential pump you or attack with Raikou, whatever. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then their Terramon was just the Wellspring.
And also Miraidon really likes having their bench has always been so awkward because you want to have some matchups you want Zapdos, and then you want Fez, and then you want Mew as your free retreater, and then your hand sucks, you had to have Squawk. So just having the 8 bench just makes it so good to just have all your dummies on the bench, just have full access to all of them. And Raikou's just now Raikou just becomes a 2-of and a better attacker, and you don't have to rely on generator as much because you could literally go take 2 with my first Raikou, take 2 with my second Raikou, bear. I don't even need to attack Miraidon anymore.
No.
Yeah, Miraidon's
makes your deck a lot more consistent, not needing to hit those double generators. So I think you can cut back the energy account a lot. I don't think you need 16 energy anymore.
And you can thin out all of your Pokemon because you have 8 bench spots.
No, I was gonna say you can choose your bench. Choose your bench pretty much.
You're not generating Pokemon anymore because they're all on your board.
Right.
Maybe I need to play Miraidon. Jeez. Sounds pretty good.
Pretty solid.
I do. Yeah, that's a deck I do want to put some more time into this format. I haven't really come up with a list I've liked enough yet. I think you just have to cut down on the energy and be like, all right, I just need 1 off every generator and I'm fine. So who cares?
13 seems fine, probably.
Yeah. That's what I was playing, but that was also a double Flaffy. I'm talking about like back when I was top 8 Portland.
Right.
And even then, everyone made fun of me, like, "Oh, what are you doing with only 13?" I was like, "I don't know. We got double Flappy in our deck. It's fine. Never had an issue."
Yeah, I think 13 is fine for sure.
That might be a little low, so like since you don't have Flappy, but yeah, if you only need one energy for Raikou, then maybe it is fine.
Yeah, not too bad.
The problem is hands. You still need the double generator plus DT.
Yeah, that's where it gets really weird for sure.
But his hands less relevant this format.
I think so personally, but
yeah, a lot of big Pokemon
because of all the turbo decks.
Yeah, it makes
unless,
sense.
like we were all just saying, like if Gardevoir picks up if we're all saying Drago's going down, Bolt and Zard going up, kind of sounds like Gardevoir, as that's two good matches. I'm going to be honest. I'm not considering Gardevoir, but it does make a lot of sense. I do think if you're going to play, for anybody who's going to play Gardevoir for Louisville, I think you got to play Devo for Charizard, so you can just kind of lock that matchup up. But the turbo decks
in the top 16. I don't think. Oh yeah, this guy had double Devo here. This top 16 list from the Champions League.
Yeah, but the guy who won ours, he didn't have any Devo. He just had the other stuff.
And then the other top 16 list had one. Yeah,
I think you have to.
You could probably get away with one.
Yeah. One's because 2 was for the mirror, right? That's what 2 was for. Was for the mirror.
I mean, and you're just never losing to Zard.
It just
Dragapult
is right up. Zard is a free matchup with 2.
Yeah.
I think 2 was mostly for the mirror. I don't think you're going to play too many mirrors, and keep your rare candy in your deck if you're going to play Gardevoir. Don't cut the rare.
What for specifically?
Well, just to be quick enough against the Raging Bolts, all these decks that can just kind of race you a little bit. You kind of need the candy. I think Henry.
Well, Briar doesn't do anything if you just set up a monkey 4-prize turn.
Right. But I'm saying in reference to Henry's list, because he played the candy, he wanted to be faster to keep up. Yeah, so I'm just saying, just for the speed.
That was more for against Drago specifically.
Right. Okay, I'm saying for the speed of it. Yeah, for the speed of it though, to get that turn 2 attack. Obviously, against Drago, if you don't candy, you're losing all your Pokemon. You're getting Trifrosted or Dragapulted for multiple knockouts. But I'm not a fan of one monkey either, so I don't agree with everything in Henry's list. But I do think
I was gonna play one monkey. I was working on Gardevoir a little bit. I came to a similar conclusion as Henry. I had Heroescape instead of the Secret Box though, but I was also playing like Double Research, Rare Candy, only one monkey, Stretcher, things like that. But yeah, I didn't come to the Secret Box conclusion, but I did win a challenge with a little bit more aggressive Gardevoir. Not quite as turbo as his, but we're getting there.
Yeah, the Secret Box I'm still on the fence about. I haven't played any games of the list, so don't listen to my I have no idea. I'm just looking at it, I'm just like, man, when do you ever have 3 extra cards to just dump after dumping all the stuff with Curly? It just feels hard to play in the game without
made it work though.
He made it work, and he played 10 million games on ladder, and it worked out.
He's $10,000 richer than me on that weekend, so I don't have. I'm not hating. I haven't played. I haven't played it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Kind of talking about some other decks then. Dusknoir decks in general. Hunter, you obviously played a cool Dusknoir deck that ended up doing pretty well at what's it called? Baltimore. That's the regional that just happened. So how do you feel about them in general in the Stellar Crown format? Do they still have a strong place? Do they look different now? What do you think?
Yeah, I think just some of the strongest decks are playing Dusknoir. Charizard, Terapagos. There are other decks that you could play Dusknoir with. I think Bayonet's still pretty decent.
Yeah. So specifically the 4-stretcher heavy, Duskull, Dusknoir stuff.
Yeah. The weird Charizard list with the Mew and the bundle, all those type of variants. All the board wipe variants, I think, have a place in the meta, and they have a place, in my opinion, they have the place in the tournament structure. It's because most of those decks, besides Bayonet takes a little bit longer, but specifically for Palkia and the Charizard Dusknoir, you're either winning in 2 or 3 turns or you're losing. So all right, I can win this game. or it's impossible for me to come back. I'm just going to scoop and go to the next one. So I like that about the Dusknoir decks. I don't think it's as the same as Terapagos, because Terapagos just takes so much time to do all the stuff that you're doing. It's just like back to Shady Dealings. You're like, Shady Dealings, then Rare Candy. Then I need to play Briar. Then I need to use my other Shady Dealings. Then I need to pop Dusknoir. Let me grab my DC. Like, you have so many things you have to do. It's just not as fast as the other versions. But yeah, I like the punishing of the small Pokemon, and just popping 2 Dusknoir to take 2 prizes, giving 2 and taking 2 is just an even exchange. And I think that's just really strong with all these big 2 prize decks with a bunch of idiots on their board like Fez, Squawk, Lumineon, Totem. I could name a lot, but yeah. 260 kills them all. So if you can pop 2 Dusknoirs, you're good. Yep. 2 of my top 3 decks for Louisville have Dusknoir in them. So yeah, it's fair to say that I'm pretty affectionate.
And the other one, Hunter, you want to tell them about that, or is that one a
Said what?
And the third one is
yeah. Maybe we'll do that for the bonus
one.
Yeah,
bonus episode. We can talk about your third choice. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Check out the Patreon if you want to see that. Link in the description. So, talking not about that deck, then talk about a different deck really quickly. Obviously, we kind of have to talk about Regidrago because it was the most popular deck and the strongest deck last format. I know, Nick, you were talking about how you still think it's really strong. Just in general, like, what are your thoughts on it in this meta? Why aren't people playing it? I guess is probably the better question.
Because they want to try all the new fun stuff. That's why. Yeah, I mean, the Bolt matchup's bad on paper. I don't think it's actually that bad, honestly. I am 4-0 against Raging Bolt in tournament. Some against not so good players, some against pretty strong players. I think the matchup's close to even, honestly. Maybe you can also play Briar in your deck now too as Regidrago, and you might be one of the better decks to take advantage of it because you can set up damage with Dragapult with Curum, and then save your V-Star power and just be like, okay, V-Star for Prime Catcher, Briar, energy switch to my Ogerpon, take the last 3. That's all hypothetical. I haven't actually tried it yet. That's probably what I'm going to play to my cup this weekend because I don't have any of the new cards. So I'm sure I can get my hands on a Briar. Though. Yeah, I think it's something people are definitely underrating right now.
Yeah, I don't dislike Regidrago. I do understand why it's on the downtrend even before the new card, just because Lugia had such a strong performance at Baltimore as far as the people that played it and how many of them made day 2. So Lugia,
I definitely regret cutting Temple for that tournament. I hit 3 Lugia. I was able to beat 2 of them. I said I regret cutting Temple for that tournament. I hit 3 Lugias. I was able to beat 2 just because they kind of handed me the win on a silver platter, but the other guy knew what he was doing, so lost that one pretty handedly.
Well, that is the problem in a tournament. Yeah, you run into somebody who knows what they're doing.
I hate when that happens. It's terrible.
God, just playing somebody who knows how to play Pokemon, horrible. I think the uptick of having to deal with Lugia and then having to deal with the Raging Bolt and then having to deal with Roaring Moon. Not that all of them are like just a free win to Regidrago or free wins for them against the Regidrago players, because they're not, but they definitely feel slightly favored. Lugia probably is the most favored, I would say. I think Lugia probably has the best Regidrago matchup out of everything in this last format. So I think that will scare the initial Drago off, but I'm sure players like Isaiah and Ian, who just continue to play the deck and are really good players, they're just going to keep playing it. Why not? What's the hurting on
if
that?
If the tournament was tomorrow, I would maybe be playing it myself too. Either that or Terapagos deck, probably, just because that was cool. But I feel like it's not proven enough yet to bring to a major potentially. Whereas Drago's like obviously good, right?
Sure.
Yeah, with Charizard and Dragapult, like Dragapult's seeing so much play, but it's like still on the fringe. Even though I'm a Dragapult enjoyer, the new cards still keep it on the fringe. And Charizard is obviously just a good matchup for Regidrago. So those 2 decks, one being popular, one being really strong, definitely seems like Regidrago could have some success. I would be wary of all of the turbo decks, though. There's just so many. It's kind of hard to lottery get away from playing turbo decks all day.
Yeah, I'll play it for my cup this weekend, and I'll report back. I'll report the results. I have 2 actually. I have 2 cups. Yeah.
I think that honestly, Regidrago is really solid. I was honestly skeptical into the turbo decks also, like Hunter was saying, but I played it on ladder probably 15 games, hit a bunch of turbos, and I probably beat them all. I can't remember losing to any.
The matchups are really not that bad as people think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people make it out to be just like this really, really terrible matchup for, and like there's Regidrago, but then there's 3 turbo decks that just like eat up the Regidrago, but it's like not really how it works. I think the matchups are pretty close to even, maybe a little bit favored, like slightly favored for the turbo decks, but it's definitely a lot closer, especially because the people on Regidrago are normally very, very good, and then in my experience playing against people that play turbo are not as good as the Regidrago players. So
the overbenching is the big thing that I think a lot of the turbo players are making the mistake at, that if they're not overbenching all the idiots, the squawks and fez and all this stuff, if they didn't overbench those, I think the win rate would show for that. But unfortunately, that's not how it goes. So.
Yeah, like seeing the percentages are like for players are sometimes like really daunting. Like, dude, there's 15% at Baltimore, 15% Raging Bolt. We can't play Regidrago, but then half these Raging Bolt players don't know how to play Pokemon, or like they don't know what they're doing. So
if you play Raging Bolt, you probably don't know how to play Pokemon. Somebody clip that. All you Bolt enjoyers, come after Andy Gantner.
Chill out.
Get him.
I'm gonna get canceled. But a lot of times.
I was like 5-1 at Baltimore, right? I sit down against Raging Bolt. This guy goes, trekking shoes. Think for a minute. Discard Sada. I'm like, all right. You probably got another one, right? And then he did not have another one. So he just passed the next turn. I was like, okay. Apparently he didn't have any energy in his discard. That's what he said afterwards. So I guess.
Well, that would make sense.
Yeah, they're just digging.
I don't know. But he didn't have any follow-up either next turn. And he didn't even burst roar that turn. So
I will say, feels like when Raging Bolt bricks, it bricks so bad. It's like such a slim amount that you do brick, but when you do, it just feels like horrible. Like you're just handful of energy and like Pokemon catchers and vessel. Like
maybe that's one of the decks that should be playing double squawk. For that reason. Like you have to squawk every game with that deck, basically.
I'm surprised not seeing that like in the Japanese list in particular with like a best of one format.
With the best of one, sure. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Like even Jesse and the Shinosuke guy who got second at Worlds both played double squawk in their Miraidon and Roaring Moon list specifically. So I don't think it would be a terrible idea by any means to play it in Raging Bolt. And then also just like I always like more Ultra Balls, more outs to the turn 1 squawk.
Yeah, people are light on the Ultra Ball too. That's kind of a weird topic too.
Yeah, like if you only have 5 outs to your squawk, or you're not really seeing it more than half the games.
Yeah. Up your account of Ultra Ball Raging Bolt players. Count them up.
I've been messing with 4 Nest Ball, 3 Ultra Ball, and Luminion in the list, and it's been a lot more consistent as a result. But I'm still
the fish.
Good idea.
The fish is okay. I don't know. I'm probably gonna cut it.
There's no V-Star power in Raging Bull, right?
No, you can put Sealstone if you want, but a lot of times you don't even really want to play Luminion.
Yeah, I don't know how you would find Sealstone. I mean, that by the time you're finding Sealstone, you're just like, basically.
The same thing in Lost Box. The same thing in Lost Box, though. You're playing Pokestops and you were having Sealstone. You didn't have any way to find it, but when you did, you popped off. It's just another.
I don't run Sealstone. I mean, I guess. Wait, did I run it last one? Did I run it for any SE?
How do you
like
know?
In the future.
You had no V Pokemon in your deck, Andy.
Okay, yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, you have
3 EXs and no
V's. Talking about like past Lost Box build that played.
Yeah.
You just never had any way to search it, and you were playing Pokestop just like Bolt is. Not that I'm saying go put 4 Sealstone.
We played like 3 of them. Right.
But I mean, in Lost Box, you also have like a lot more stuff that you need to find, like one-ofs and like like Mirage Gates at the end of the game. You're going to be low on. So it's going to be a lot of combo pieces.
Yeah, well, so does Raging Bull. You need energy retrievals and Pokemon catchers and Asada.
Like that though.
Yeah, but it'd feel so bad if you Seal Stone for Pokemon Catcher and flip tails. I'd cry. I'd be so sad.
Yeah, it's funny.
I already forgot where we were. What's
probably Dragapult time?
Yeah, talk about Dragapult. Let's talk about Dragapult. Another deck that was very hyped up in Japan. I think it's gone back down a little bit. It was like up in their S tier for like a while. But I imagine the reason why it picked up initially a lot was because Charizard were just so popular and so strong. Dragapult obviously should have the good Charizard matchup. And then it seems like since Raging Bolt kind of took off more and more, it's kind of fallen back down a little bit over there. But yeah, what are your thoughts on it, Hunter?
I think Crispin's awesome, and I think the Crystal's awesome. It just makes your deck viable. Dragapult is a viable deck. You can bring it to the tournament. I don't know how great you'll do, but it is viable. I've definitely been enjoying the deck, although it is not in my considerations to actually play it at the tournament. But I do think your Zard matchup's really good. And if you set up and you get your Dragapults up, I think Regidrago is a decent matchup too. I just think that like Miraidon actually being able to like Raikou, if you have a decent enough bench, Raikou can actually knock out Dragapult. And obviously Raging Bull has never been a for you. So I think it's kind of like in the
Raikou's knocking
similar.
out Dragapult now. They're putting down 6 bench.
Yeah, 5 and 8, right? 13. That's
They need 6, right?
Yeah, that's
200 plus. They would need 6.
No, it's wait.
20. 8.
You do 200 for your base.
Quick maths.
Plus whatever they have.
Yeah. So
no, it's yeah, 200. Yeah,
260.
Yeah.
That's 280. All right, maybe we're not Dragapults yet, but
they would have to really play it.
Well, if the Dragapult guy, he has a Terra and he benches 6 Pokemon, then we're getting our Dragapult knocked out.
Yeah.
I don't
think so.
Yeah, there's not too many big points to play Dragapult other than beating Charizard.
Sure.
And you probably do pretty
well.
well.
How's the Bolt matchup with it? I've heard that it's
not good. Yeah, I've played a little bit of it, and like you have to do like cheese stuff, like the Gravity Gemstone and like League Headquarters to maybe have a chance, and even then it's like still bad.
What ace spec are you playing, by the way?
The Crystal.
Okay.
Yeah, the Crystal.
It's really good.
Also, explain to me why Crispin is better than Mellow.
Well, I think Crispin's better than Mela if you play Radiant Charizard. But I guess Mela you could technically do that. But
doesn't that do the same thing? Yeah.
I feel like your hand is
early,
like
right.
I feel like your hand maybe is never small enough to like get advantage of the cards where they kind of feel like the same. I think it's just powering the naked Dragapult up out of nowhere. But I guess I see what you're saying with Mela doing the same thing, but you have to have the fire in the discard.
You have to have it in the discards. You can't do it
it's a little
turn 1
trickier.
or turn 2.
Yeah, you just pull
but if
it
you're
from
going in with the crystal attach early, right, and then you can do Mela later.
Well, what if the psychic was the energy that you had with your crystal because it counts for either?
Vessel for fire instead. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The Crispins felt pretty good just because like the other issue I have with the deck sometimes is I just can't find energy at all because you run so little. You don't have that many vessels unless you play extra vessels. So
just probably play 2 vessel then
maybe you need more. Yeah,
I don't know. Again, it feels like Charizard, where it's like, Ultra Ball is a great card, but it feels bad playing it because you just don't have enough discard stuff. Dragapult is kind of like the same, where you can't have
right. That's the thing. Like, I feel like my hand is usually pretty low with Dragapult once I've got out the Pidgeot and the Dragapult. So
you have to die.
Dragapult could be significant. You do have to die for Mellow.
Yeah, Crispin can just happen.
Yeah,
I understand.
I don't think there's like it's hard to like make a better or worse argument for that because the 2 cards don't have like the same condition.
Right. Right.
Different things.
I just think
for both.
I
don't think Mela's bad either. I think if you want to play Mela
yeah.
instead of Crispin, I don't think it's like the hugest difference in the world for sure. It's not.
I'm just surprised that everyone's playing Crispin. I think Mela's worth considering as well.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's objectively better necessarily.
Yeah, I don't hate Mela. I think either way you got to play one of them. You can't play none of them.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No matter if you have crystal or not.
If you have.
Yeah, and the deck gets Briar, so there's some really cool gross plays that you can make where you're like, I'm going to take 5 prizes and one go with my Dusknoir and
Yeah.
Briar, and then
Yeah.
I'm knocking out multiple 2-prize Pokemon. And so, yeah, it's got a lot of cool plays, a lot more. I keep saying nuance. All these decks have a little bit more nuance with the new stuff. So,
I think that's
yeah,
like the
feels
big takeaway too from this format is while things do feel pretty similar, and sometimes some games are literally less turns, it does feel like a lot of the turns are more nuanced. There's more things to think about, more things going on in general, which is probably why people generally have that higher opinion of how Stellar Crown has felt so far.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to get a wake-up call if you have not practiced playing against a variety of decks that play Briar. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to walk into losing the game when you're like, hey, you had 4 prizes
What
and
do
I
you
have 2.
mean?
Hey, how did I lose?
What do you mean you took a 4 prizes in
So, like the play that Nick mentioned, where like as a Raging Bolt player, you cannot put down Greninja if your prize trade goes a certain way, or else or Sandy Shocks if you still have that in your list, or whatever. Anything that's under 130 HP, you can't bench it, or you could be at 2, your opponent's at 4, and you lose the game. So yeah, things like that people need to definitely test against a variety of decks that have Briar win cons, so to speak. Yeah, another deck that runs Dusknoir, Dragapult, another Dusknoir.
All right, well, we need to get into our bonus episode in just a little bit here, so I think it's time to end this episode of the Dead Draw Gaming Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate it. Any shout-outs from Nick Moffitt?
Just go follow me on Twitter. I don't know.
All right,
know what else
not sure. What about you? Any articles coming out on Cutter Tap soon?
Yeah, I have an article coming out on Terra Pokemon, and then I should have one more before Louisville. I'm not sure what it'll be on. It's a chance it could be on this deck that we'll talk about in the bonus episode, and there's a chance that it'll be on something else, maybe the turtle deck that I've been working on. So yeah, just check out the website. Hopefully I make a stipend.
Andy, what about you?
Yeah, shout out Raging Bull players, and follow me on Twitter.
He's got to say
Andy.
players.
I love you guys.
Good job. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.